Chucky. Wanna play?
I'm your host, Scary Pops, and we all love a good scare. So let's get into it. Come play with me. Some time ago, a friend of mine and I decided to do the Ouija board for the first time. This is something that we had never dared to do, but we called a few of our friends to come and hang out and do it with us, as we were told that if you had more people, that there'd be something that could likely happen. So we had a hard time convincing the others to come, but in the end, they did agree to come along. We got everything ready, and feeling a little bit nervous, we all sat down at the table and got started. But during the session, one of the girls we had called to join us stood up and said, "This is nonsense. I'm out of here." We got a little scared and decided to leave it for another time. After a few days, the girl that left called me. She was beside herself. She said that she was passing a house near her home on the way back from the library. A little girl dressed in white had asked her, "Come play with me." My friend told her that she couldn't as she was in a hurry to get home, and immediately the girl began to cry tears of blood. My friend fled, and when she got home, that's when she called me. At first I thought she was pulling my leg, but something told me that was not the case. I began to think about the day that we had done the Ouija board and how abrupt my friend had been when she got up to leave. I didn't give it much more thought, pretty much just went to bed, but the next day my friend called me because she was going to be home alone studying, and she was really scared, and she asked if I could keep her company. So I took a bus over to hers, and we settled down with our books, and after a while we heard a scratching noise behind us. We both looked up, and we were horrified to find that the girl that she described was sitting on my friend's bed. As we saw her scratching the wall, we ran out of the room, and we got to the front door, and I noticed my friend wasn't there. I was terrified. I couldn't make myself to wait for her, though. I called the police, and when they arrived, they said that they found my friend at the bottom of the stairs. She had died of an asthma attack, and she had a terrified expression on her face. A few weeks had passed, and I went out to the mailbox, and there was a note, and it read, "Your friend died because she wouldn't play with me, and now I have a new doll, and you're next." We were living with my brother-in-law and his two teens when I was pregnant. He had an elevated house on quite a bit of a former hunting land and several miles down a county road. My husband, he would work from 7 to 6. And my brother-in-law, well, he worked offshore, usually for about 14 days. And while he was at work, his kids stayed with their grandmother. It was a nice house, but it had such a weird vibe. I chalked it up to pregnancy hormones. One day home alone, I was taking a shower, but I felt someone staring at me. I stuck my head out and listened. I couldn't hear anyone in the house, so I went back and resumed my shower. But just then, a while later, I heard the back door shut. I was standing in the kitchen, and I could see the door, which had no steps and 6 inches from the ground, that it was still locked. I told my husband about it that night, and he shrugged it off. We locked down and went to bed. However, not too long had I been asleep, I woke up to the blankets being yanked off the bed, and my husband flipping on every light in the house. He threw open every door, every cabinet, looked in the pantry, the closet, holding his handgun. I said, "What's going on?" He said he swore he heard boots thumping through the house and someone talking. Everything was still locked. It's not a big house. No one was there except us. One night my niece was staying over and she came into our room and asked to sleep in the bed with us. Now this girl, she really isn't scared of anything, and she's 14 at the time. I sat up and told my husband to scoot over and patted my pillow, and then her 16-year-old brother was curled up on the blanket on the floor beside me. I said, "Why are you both in our room at 2 a.m? They didn't want to answer at first, but they said that when she came into his room to sleep on the cot, something started knocking on the door, and that they came down here as soon as it stopped. Just then my husband went and flipped on every light in the house, looked in every nook and cranny. Nothing. A month later, we eventually moved out, and the kids decided to live full-time with Grandma. My husband told me that he had heard a man laughing in his niece's room, but there was nobody ever there when he turned on the lights, and it scared the crap out of him."
This was on a regular weekday night. I was at home by myself, drinking a cup of coffee while staying up late in my room to get some work done. I had a tight deadline, and working late this night would make the rest of the week a lot easier on me. I was on my laptop at my desk, really focused and slightly tired, but my focus was broken when I heard a thump downstairs. I looked over at the doorway to my room where the sound echoed from, but remembered that it was raining outside and that the sound was probably just the house creaking in the rain and wind. I continued working, only to be interrupted again a moment later by another thump. I got up and walked to the bottom of the steps. All the lights were off, but I waited for the sound to come again so I could try and locate where it was, just to make sure it wasn't anything serious. I was still tired and had no reason to believe this was anything other than the house making sounds, and after a minute of waiting, I went back upstairs. Waiting around for something that was likely nothing was just a waste of my time, which I wanted to be spending on work so that I could get to bed. I went back to my laptop and worked for another hour and a half, not hearing any more sounds from downstairs, aside from a few small creaks every once in a while. It was close to 1 a.m., and I was just finishing up what I needed to get done for the night, when another thump echoed through the house. This one was much louder and sounded like it came from the bottom of the steps. I got up and rushed over to the stairs, a little more concerned now, but nothing was down there. I went down a few steps and looked over the railing, but the house was now just as quiet and empty as ever. The rain was still coming down, but this seemed to be far too loud and frequent than anything rain could be causing. After waiting again though, I got impatient and went back to my room. I had no idea what was going on, but I still couldn't see how it could be anything more than the house creaking. I sat back down at my desk, and it was almost right away that another thump rang through the house, this time sounding from right in the hall outside my room. I looked over at the half-open doorway, and not even a second later, a figure walked past it down the hall. My heart stopped for a moment as I felt a wave of shock run through me. I heard them walk into one of the spare bedrooms, and figuring they had to know I was home already, I ran up to my door and locked it shut. The footsteps stopped instantly, then began quickly going back into the hallway and right up to my door. I backed up and tried to find anything to use as a weapon. In this moment, I probably could have called 911, but I think I was too worried of something happening before they would have time to arrive. I picked up a pair of scissors from my desk as the man banged on the other side of the door. He then started to what I think was kicking it, because it sounded as if the door could snap out of the frame at any second. but then he stopped. I heard heavy breathing from against the door, then footsteps going down the stairs. I got my phone from my desk and called 911 as their steps started making their way through the downstairs hallways. A door closed, I think it was the back door, and then the house was silent. Police actually came really quick, getting to my house in just 2 or 3 minutes, and I almost had another scare when I heard footsteps sprinting out of the house. I think by closing the door, he was trying to trick me into thinking he left, which kind of worked, but I was still too scared to go downstairs without the police being there. Anyway, I ran out and got the police, but whoever that man was had already run off, and even with more cars patrolling the neighborhood, they never found him. There's so many questions to it that will haunt me for the rest of my life probably, especially since he's out there right now and could be stalking me or waiting for another time to break in. His intent is not clear, but the investigators seem to think he had broken into the house in the morning, possibly while I was out of the house. It's likely he was waiting for me to go to sleep before doing whatever it was he planned, but if he had been hiding for several hours, I don't think it would have been just to steal a few things.